Where's Mr. Hart? Mr. Hart, I thought was coming.
We're on.
All right, let's go ahead and call the August 13th meeting of the Ad Hoc Reconstitution Committee to order at 9:02 a.m. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Those of you joining in person and virtually. First on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the previous Ad Hoc Reconstitution Committee meeting of May 14th, 2026. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to review those certainly well thought out, well crafted minutes that we receive regularly from Ms. Lynn. And I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes as the board sees fit.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion, requested changes, questions?
No, sir.
All right, hearing none. All in favor by way of aye?
Aye.
Opposed likewise? Anybody virtually opposed? All right, carries unanimously. Next item up for our discussion and action items. First, we got to receive the quarterly progress report number 4 as it was submitted to RIA. Mr. Elliott.
Just for the record, this is a copy of the report that both Lynn and I signed. That was a summary of the events that took place during the previous quarter, as was recommended to the to RIA as part of the previous study, which was, I think, the general feasibility study that we did. So Mr. Flynn reviewed these, as well as Ms. Metlin. I'm not sure, did you guys see those two, Joel, before it was submitted? So they've been reviewed by the facilitators as well as Lawrence before we submitted those. So again, packet for the record, these were also provided to a Coney County Council.
Does anybody have any concerns, oppositions, or support for the report as submitted to RIA? So this has already been submitted.
Yes, sir. It's been
As it's been submitted to RIA.
Yes, sir. It's been submitted.
So I'll make one comment from the consultant side. We're getting to the point now, I think, where we're going to start deviating from the proposed schedule that we had, I think, established for RIA. So it may be that when we get a few things resolved, some of those we'll discuss today, we might want to have a call maybe with RIA and reset. So as we continue to submit these reports, they're in line with what we established earlier on. Not something to do today, but I just think that might be a good thing for us to do sometime between now and the end of the year. Just so because I know they may not have time to read all this as we submit it. There's going to come a time when they're going to sit down and look at it and say, oh God, it's not what we thought was happening.
Yeah, we're all scheduled here.
Yeah, so just make that as a comment for us, and we'll, we can take action on that later on.
All right, duly noted.
That's everything. It's just for information purposes for the committee.
All right, anybody virtually have anything before we move on? You don't need us to approve that anyway, right?
No, sir. It's already submitted. Yes, sir. It's already submitted.
All right, we'll move on. Status update on the financial studies.
Since Angie's not able to be with us, I think we have Will Kerr on this morning. Is anyone else from Raftellus or First Trine on the call?
I'll let them announce who's attending.
We'll just turn it over to them. I
Yes,
think they're going to give us an update on progress.
Yeah, this is Will Carr. Can you guys hear me okay?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Yeah, appreciate y'all having us on to give a quick update. This will definitely be a quick one. So we don't have anything significant to share quite yet, but let me tell you what we've been working on, and what we see as sort of the next steps for our analysis. And I'll give the Raftellus update, and Chazo from First Rounds on too, and Chazo, you can go next after me, following questions or whatever. So y'all just let me know any questions. But we've been working on, we're developing a custom rate model for this analysis. We've made really good headway getting data in, from OJRSA and from the cities. Really, our current focus has been on modeling out what I'd call a status quo scenario. So, we sort of feel like that needs to be the baseline from which we're going to measure things financially from. We also, as you all know, met with each entity during July individually, and that was really helpful for the Raftellus team to discuss some questions and to understand what the most important issues to each community were. So that I think was a huge kind of piece of our analysis, because it helps us understand what the most important things are that we need to keep an eye on and try to balance as we think about a path towards regionalization in the future. In terms of, I guess before I go to next steps, in terms of information needed, I think we're in pretty good shape, and we'll stop, harassing everyone for data. We've gotten good information from OJRSA, Seneca, Walhalla, Westminster, and some information from West Union as well. We've received no information from the county at this point, so that is one gap. But for now, we're sort of moving forward with what we've got. Let me pause there. Any questions before I talk about what comes next?
I see a lot of no head shaking, so I would continue.
Okay. Our current focus right now is on two key issues, and I think that they will be two really important assumptions for the analysis. And the first is what consolidated system O&M, operating and maintenance expenses, might look like. And then the second, which is one that we really, that I think really came out of our individual meetings with folks, is the capital reinvestment needs for the local collection systems. I mean, it seems like there's a little bit of, there's some projects that have been identified in the individual city sewer collection systems, but I think, our concern is that there's more reinvestment needs out there than are known. So we're trying to come up with a way to estimate or come up with an assumption. It probably have to be a broad assumption, because that's probably a pretty detailed study to really figure all that out. So we're working with Ardura and the team on that. First Trion's making good headway, so we're getting we've already got some data information from them. But from there, I don't think we're too far off from having a consolidated rate calculation together, and then working on fleshing out some preliminary findings to present to the ad hoc committee. I'll stop there. That's sort of the way we see the next couple of weeks, month or two progressing. So what questions can I answer about any of that?
We'll start in person. Anybody got any questions? Virtual group. Anybody got any questions for Will?
Normally I have all kind of questions for Will Kerr, but he is exceptional at explaining exactly what he has and what he needs, and I think he did a great job.
All right. The only thing I've got, Will, is I'm assuming there is, when you're looking at the capital reinvestment needs, I'm assuming there's some kind of an industry standard or recommendation for repairs and or replacements based off of system size, linear foot, or something. So surely there's somewhere that somebody has said, an expert, not me, has said, based on your system size, this is what you ought to be investing annually in rehab and or replacement. is that something you could use for your broad projection for capital investment needs, just to give a starting point?
Yeah, I think that's Scott. Yes, Scott. I think that that's where we're headed. You're right there with us. I think we'll have to go with some sort of industry standard or broad brush assumption. That there are definitely some ways to estimate it. Based on, you're exactly right, miles of pipe. There's even a step further where you can look at, the type of material used, given that some pipe materials hold up better than others. But it's a pretty slippery slope in terms of, getting bogged down in a pretty in-depth analysis. So we'll probably stay away from something too in-depth. We, Raftellus, are not qualified to do that, but we're going to collaborate with Ardura, see what we can come up with just from kind of a swag standpoint. So it'll probably have to be an assumption, but our hope is that assumption is rooted in some pretty good backup data.
I can give you some information, Scott, about how it was done to help us develop our CIP and Ardura was helpful with putting that together.
Give it to me. Give
Well, so it was so Will, ours was put together and it was by Ardura, and this was after we had completed our first round of flow monitoring that we did across the system as part of our CMOM and consent order, as well as some preliminary CCTV work that we did. We picked just general segments of the system and looked at those. And I think the rough estimate that they came up with for us was assume 20% to 25% of the system was going to have to be rehabilitated. We do have a mix of pipe, that ranges from 8-inch up to 36-inch. And our pipe types were anything from clay to ductile PVC and RCP. But the oldest pipe that we have in our system is about 45 years old. So I think they took those factors into account when they developed that high-level estimate for us.
All right, sounds like we're on the right track then. I know we're all anxious and waiting with anticipation to see the results of the financial part. I think that's a critical component. So you guys might have one of the most important roles in this whole process. All right, Chazo, you have anything to add to that?
Yes, good morning. My update will be relatively short and sweet, but good news on our front. We have gathered everything we need from an existing debt perspective, been able to isolate on an entity-by-entity basis which outstanding loans have a sewer component to them, what those repayment schedules look like, what the call provisions look like, so that when we ultimately start to consider what the new entity might look like, the new OJRSA with these members folded in, we'll know how much debt we'll need to take out and what that new amortization will look like. So from our perspective, all of the data gathering is complete. And then to piggyback off of what Will was saying, as he gets his baseline model built out, we'll work with him and his team to look at the capital improvement plan and start to figure out strategies on funding that capital plan, mix of cash, debt. If it is debt components, what are we looking at in terms of issuance type, whether it's public markets, bank markets, amortization terms, things of that nature. So we are in a great position from our end, and we'll just continue to plug away with Bill and his team as their analysis starts to come to fruition.
Perfect.
Hey Chazo, are you separately doing any materiality analysis for in the event that a component of the system is being peeled off? And obviously, if you've got a combined utility system for issuance purposes, where that materiality threshold comes in, if you're separating a component of a combined system for future coverage on outstanding debt that may not otherwise be directly attributable to the sewer system.
So you're saying from the perspective of an entity that has a combined enterprise system and what we're leaving behind that's non-sewer related?
It may be worth thinking through the additional thought on whether or not those individual components independently cash flow, because as a combined system, if you've got to make a determination when you sell a component, it doesn't materially affect the security interest of the bondholders when you sell off that portion of the system or get rid of that portion of the system. They were relying on the sewer revenues to undergird support the repayment. Someone's going to have to make a determination that any bonds that remain outstanding are not going to be materially affected by the loss of that revenue stream.
Yeah, that's something that we can certainly give some thought to and make sure that we have our arms around it if and when that does come into play.
All right, any in-person questions for Will or Chazo? Virtual group, any questions for Will or Chazo?
No questions.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3, discussion of continued county participation. Mr. Flynn, I believe your name's written next to that one if you weren't aware. I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Certainly. So we had a conversation about this in the commission meeting last week. We've reached out a couple of times, and I think the consultants for this group have tried making a number of communications with the county to kind of gauge their participation and their interest in proceeding with this process, and have not gotten a lot of great feedback at this point. And then, kind of adding insult to injury, there were discussions among this group, and it was proposed in the final report of the recommendation committee and memorialized in writing and accepted by all the parties that are considered as ongoing members of the organization as this reconstitution otherwise occurs, that some studies were going to be necessary. So the 2 studies that were just presented on from Ratellis and First Tryon are material considerations for anyone that's going to make a decision to either continue with the organization, to work through the consolidation process, to be a part of the reconstitution process, or to consider selling any portion of his assets, to have as much information as they possibly can to be able to make that decision. And so it was generally accepted, and it was approved by this body, and the understanding being that the recommendation resolutions or the approval resolutions approved by each of the individual members, the Oconee Joint and their commission, each of the member cities, and the county contemplated that there would be costs incurred in deploying this authorization. The county has rejected any sharing of those costs, and so based on that, there were some obviously very legitimate concerns expressed in the commission meeting, and so they have advised for a letter to go out today under the signature of Mr. Bronson as the chair of the OJRSA board and Mr. Eleazar as the executive director to the members, or to Mr. Jones as the administrator, and then a variety of other interested parties as carbon copy recipients, to advise them that if they're unwilling to participate and pay their proportionate share, that they will no longer be considered as a member of this organization with a voting right on the Reconstitution ad hoc committee board, and also will be removed from consideration on any reconstituted authority. And so I think the general assumption was that if you're unwilling to pay your proportionate share, you're not serious about being involved in the transaction. It's not really a whole lot of money, and so there's too many decisions that need to be made to pull everyone along that doesn't want to come along. And so we're getting to a place where some hard decisions are going to have to get made, and that's the place that we stand. So I put that out there for the discussion of the group. Obviously, the members of this board who are on the Oconee Joint Regional Governing Board already are aware of this. I think most folks have seen a copy of the letter, but didn't want anyone to be surprised when that goes, and certainly welcome the opportunity to have any discussions around what the thoughts for submitting the letter and what went into discussion, and some of the building frustration around lack of participation.
And Kevin and Lawrence, if I remember correctly, wasn't there a discussion about a conversation with Senator Thomas Alexander, since he was so intimately involved in this process in the beginning?
Yes, and so he was going to be added as a carbon copy recipient of the letter, as will Bonnie Ammons at RIA.
Okay. All right, so Lawrence has kind of thrown that out on the table for discussion. Does anybody on this particular committee have any comments or questions about that board position?
I'll just
Yeah,
put out.
Scott, this is Kevin. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, Kevin. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, I think Lawrence and I think everybody really has done a great job trying to figure out what to do here. And I did have a very brief conversation with Senator Alexander when he came to Westminster Rotary a week or so ago. And I think he was as taken aback as we were. Like Scott, I think you mentioned that Oconee County has tried for so long to be a part of this entity, and we finally got them to see the table where it made sense, and now they don't really want to seem to be at the table. And when I say they don't really seem to want to be, I mean everything they said is pretty forthright. Like, we don't want to participate. So that's disappointing to me. I really thought there was going to be some economies of scale, or I don't even know if that's the best way to say it, but I thought it would really make sense to have a fulsome regional approach, and that Oconee County has decided not to. I wish we had some additional insight into why, and we've just not been able to get it. And so I don't know if today, and Lawrence, I kind of leave that up to you. I'm not looking at an agenda. I don't think that's an action item, other than to just send that letter out asking with a definitive date certain to let us know that if they will or they will not participate. I really, I hate that we're sending that letter, is what I'm getting at. But I think it's the necessary thing to do, given the fact that we don't have the clarity that we all wish we had on this side of the table. And I don't know if there's a way to preserve any future rights that they may have. I get that people have been really frustrated with how it's gone down probably the last year, maybe not quite that long with the county, and when we thought their participation was going to be, and just kind of went away. So anyway, I'm rambling all that just to say I'm disappointed that we're headed down this route. And if there's a chance that Oconee County gets the letter and they want to re-engage, I certainly welcome them to do that. And would also welcome if they would like to tell us what changed that we weren't aware of in their participation. And we know that they've had some significant challenges going on at the county, as well as staff changes. But anyway, I just wanted that to be on the record. Nothing really for anybody to do other than just listen to ramble. But thank you.
Kevin, no, I think that's a wonderful insight, and I think I don't want to speak for this committee and or the board, but I think I personally would agree with you 100% that this letter isn't a definitive stop or a definitive position. I think it's certainly a letter that identifies our current position with the hopes of re-engagement. So I concur and support your position that if there's an opportunity for re-engagement, we certainly want to leave that door open. But this letter's got to be sent, and I hate it too, but it needs to be in order to establish our current position and where we are, and our hopes to push this process forward and get, as you said, an economy to scale regional system that supports a grander plan rather than just the cities. So yeah, I concur 100%.
Scott, I think to Kevin's point, it is not being considered as an action item. It was an informational update. Obviously, the OGRSA board appointed the members of this ad hoc committee. They have voted formally to send this letter, and so it really is more for informational purposes so that everyone is aware and we can be as open and transparent that this is the next step that's going to be taken.
Okay. Seeing as there's no action item, but we certainly don't want to move past this. Is there any other in-person members that have any comments or anything to say about that particular letter? Anybody virtually have anything to add? All right. Well, thank you for that update, Mr. Flynn. Appreciate your work on that. That's all we've got under our discussion action items. The next item up is item D, the committee member discussion. Does any members have anything further they want to discuss?
Nothing
I did not.
I know, Joel, you had mentioned about the schedule. Is this something that the facilitators are going to look at? And
I would
bring
think
some
so. And I
thoughts
just,
to the next
again,
meeting?
now that, we've talked about the thing with the county, I know we've had informal conversations with RIE and things. I just think it might be, once we kind of, maybe after September, we kind of know where we stand. All right, let's sit down and reset and set a schedule. Because I think there were some expectations from the last meeting that the consultant team would work on a revised schedule and would work on some communication around, how we're going to determine the new board and that process. I just don't think we can do that until we resolve a few things. And so
I agree.
I just think we just need to reset at some point on a more formal level. It might be that we invite Bonnie up and we invite her to one of our meetings and we just kind of reset and propose a new schedule and a set of actions to move forward and whatever the new path is.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to set a static schedule for 2 or 3 year process that has so many moving parts and variables.
I will say I've been impressed at how you guys have, what we've been able to get done in the last year with the schedule, but it now is. Yeah,
we have an excellent chair of this committee. That's all.
Well, that's absent as he is. I would agree.
You can't see me, but I'm smiling.
All right. Any other committee discussions? I know we don't have it on the agenda, but we do have Mr. Adams with us. Welcome. Is anything that you would like to add to the group?
No, I've already read everything in the journal. I saw the agenda.
Okay. Well, you're well informed then. All right. Well, that's all we've got today, ladies and gentlemen. So unless there's any opposition, we stand adjourned. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.